guide your journey into Cabernet Sauvignon magnificence. Hello, welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, and welcome to a little corner of Stellenbosch that might be familiar if you've been watching the show over the last couple of years. This is the Bartony Wine Bar. Now, Bartony is also a wine estate. It's about 15 minutes or so that way. It's a beautiful place to stay over, to drink wine, to take in the views, but it also has this smaller extension, this little pop-up in downtown Stellenbosch, where, like so many wine bars in this little town, you've got the chance of sampling the estate of the same name, and sampling, amongst other things, this is the Hourglass Chardonnay, and I mentioned it at the top of the show because this month's competition on Dan Really Likes Wine could see you off to Bartony for an entire weekend and give you an entire case of this, the Hourglass Chardonnay 5-star wine with John Platter. To enter, we'll just jump on to our social media platforms, tag ourselves, tag Bartony, and tell us why you'd like to head off there for the weekend, and that prize could be yours. As far as prizes go, we're just coming along here and enjoying the food and the wine, and the company is a really good win, but you're also not too far off from some real gems in the Stellenbosch region. And amongst them is Keermont. That's about 10 minutes that way. Alex Starey is the man behind Keermont, just become a member of the Cape Winemakers Guild, and Alex has got a brand new wine. Welcome to somewhere veteran viewers, the both of you, might recognise. This is Great Domains. That is Derek Kilpin's tax evading, money laundering wine business based in Johannesburg, where he brings in some of the finest European wine into South Africa. I think Romani Conti headlining a fairly awesome list, and not just French, some great stuff from other parts of Europe as well. But he's also got some wine that I would argue is even better than all of that French stuff he drags in from Burgundy, because he's got some of South Africa's finest wine. A guy called Ibn Sadi you might have heard of, brings in some Chris Alhide. There's a whole range of South African producers. And then there's an estate called Keermont. Now, Keermont is an estate who we featured on the show on many occasions. Some great wine out of Stellenbosch, run by a guy called Alex, who's braved Johannesburg to come up for a visit. Welcome to the Big Smoke.
Thanks, Dan. Lovely to be up here. Yeah, it's 2 years now since I've climbed on an aeroplane, so lovely to actually get back in the game and be back on the streets.
For someone who doesn't really know the backstory of Keermont, give us the brief version.
So Mark is the owner of the farm, is from up here in Gauteng. They used to own a tobacco factory up here, producing, you know, the little orange packets with the 2 boxes on it, of tobacco. That was where Mark's background was from. He owns the farm, and they sold that whole business late 90s, early 2000s. Moved down to the Cape, and as a lot of people from Gauteng, you know, have the dream, bought a property for his kids to grow up on. People recommended to him, they said to him, look, it's a great area for wine grapes, you should plant some wine grapes. So fortunately at that stage, I was fresh out of varsity. I was working for a small producer down there called Dave Trafford, who makes some cracking wines and still is quite a mentor. He's our neighbor. And I was working for Dave, and Mark had just bought the property. He brought some grapes into Trafford's cellar, and we got chatting, and I said, oh, you've got an amazing farm. And he said, oh, well, we're looking at planting some more vineyards. So I dropped a CV off at his house and said to him, look, if you're ever going to develop this property, I'd love to be involved. And very fortunately, I went back overseas to go and do another harvest abroad. And he sent me an email and said, when you come back to South Africa, come and chat, and let's you know, talk about some work opportunities. So we planted about 20 hectares of vineyards. Mark's idea was still to sell all those grapes. And I said to him, do you mind if I take like a ton of grapes and make a couple of barrels of wine? I'll buy the barrels, I'll buy the grapes from Keermont, and I want to put my own little label on it. And he said, don't worry about that, just buy the barrels on the farm account and let's see where we go. You know, take whatever grapes you want. And so 2005 we did that, and we made a couple of barrels of Merlot. And then 2007 we actually realized that you're not allowed to just do that. All those people that have been brewing pineapple beer, it's actually illegal to produce alcohol in your own house. You've got to pay tax on it. So we contacted SARS and we said, come in, and they've made us pay tax on all the wine that we had been making up until that point. And so we registered as a producer, and we were working in this little room within an old spring water bottling plant, which one of the previous owners had built on the farm but never taken off. So we had this beautiful big building standing with tractors and old furniture and all sorts of stuff in it. Started to make a couple of barrels of wine. 2007, we decided to actually make a wine which we would sell as Keermont. We weren't even sure about the name at that stage. We started to investigate different names, and we came up with wonderful things like Green Mountain and Rocky Ridge and Blue Skies and all these,
Sounds like a collection of ice creams.
Exactly. It's just so generic, so Australian. It's like, you want to keep it authentic. The name Keermont was existing. It was already trademarked. The previous owner had taken the Keerverde of our valley, where we are, and the Montfleur of the De Trafford farm, and combined those to make Keermont. And I immediately thought that can work, because you can sell that to a Brit, you can sell it to somebody from the US, you can sell it to somebody from Germany. They can all say Keermont. It's not a difficult one. We designed this very simple little label here, just had Keermont on it, no description whatsoever, and we had one Keermont wine. That was it. And we sold that. We sold it to some private customers, some friends of Mark's who could afford it at that time. It was about $200 a bottle, and we thought it was very expensive. Then one of my friends, obviously the industry is a wonderful industry, because we all share things. We all sort of recommend to an importer or something. This American importer who was looking for a new South African wine, and my friend Chris Molyneux and Chris and Andrea sent him their importer over to us. He's a master sommelier. Came and tasted the wines. He's like, I love it. I'll take as much as you can give me. And obviously we had 1,000 bottles, so it wasn't a big order at all. But we sent him some wines, and I think that gave Mark the confidence to sort of say, well, let's go. Let's pick this up a bit. We invested a bit of money into the winery. We had obviously now the 20, 30 hectares of beautiful vines, 13 different varieties growing on the farm. And Mark invested a bit of money into the spring water bottling plant. We gave it a facelift, put in a little tasting room, some barrel cellars and that sort of thing, a bit of insulation and some cooling, but nothing major, and started to make some wine, and over the years have grown up and started to produce different varietals. We do several different wines now, and some exciting stuff, and just grown up as a business. Now we have an accountant and we have a marketing manager, and in the beginning it was the farm manager, Dominic, Mark and myself. And all the decisions that needed to be made were just, whether it was a labeling or it was an export order or whatever, we did it all. So it's nice to have all that background behind you, and now have grown into a little business.
I see you've got some of the older ones. Should we try one of its predecessors?
Let's go from the beginning. This was opened yesterday. This is the 09. So the 07, we're really down to the last couple of bottles, and I brought some up. I had some guy in a wine bar like begging me for a bottle last night, and we've actually decided to send it to him because he's quite a strong supporter. So we sent him a bit of that. This is the 09, which was quite a full-blown vintage. 09 was a really nice year in terms of fruit structure, and the wine is quite a big one. For the first few vintages, that old Merlot block was really important. And a beautiful block of Cabernet, which gave us a lot of structure, and then a little bit of Syrah, which came in, from a vineyard which Dave made his blueprint Shiraz from. So we put those three together. By 2009, some of the young plantings, which we had planted a few years before we started our first vineyards in 05. So this was probably first or second crop off a couple of them. This one I see has got a little bit of Petit Verdot, like a drop of Petit in it, but probably still based on those older blocks. So it's been really lovely to do this vertical and to go back to these older vintages and to see what we did. I think, you know, some of the wines were really holding up really nicely, and people who tasted them loved them. You know, I was obviously, you're always self-critical, but yeah, lovely to see how they're holding up these days.
And so you've got this wonderful history in a glass, history in a bottle to draw from as you create the amphitheatre. What then tells you about how you want to approach making this new wine that's a new look? In many ways it's an old wine, but you're putting a fresh spin on it, a fresh aesthetic.
Look, you know, we didn't, I think one of the big points of Keermont was that we never came in, Mark didn't come in and say, oh, he wants to build a wine estate. We weren't looking at, he wanted to plant some vineyards, I wanted to make some wine, and the combination was it just worked. So it wasn't like, oh, we're going to do this wine, we're going to do that wine. The building of the Keermont into the estate reserve and now into the amphitheatre has all been like a journey in itself. And we were probably, because I was a young winemaker, thinking we should head in the direction of a Bordeaux blend. So we had planted all these Bordeaux varieties, and I think there's always been a little bit of rebellious behavior on my behalf. That's just part of my nature. We always kept a little bit of Syrah in there. And people still say to us, I mean, look here, we've got 2% Syrah, here we've got 1% Syrah, in the new one we've got 1% Syrah, and people are like, why is there 1% Syrah? It disqualifies it, first of all, from being a Bordeaux blend. So I can't enter into the Diners Club winemaker, you know, for a Bordeaux blend. So I've always said to people, but it's a Keermont blend. And Syrah is a really important part of Keermont. You know, we've got our single vineyard Syrahs, we've got our Keermont Syrah. So we've always kept that in there. And we tended towards this Bordeaux blend, and the Syrah was getting less and less. And in my mind now, with the track record of all of our blocks and everything, I think we're going to move now away from that again, bring in some more Syrah, bring in some more Cabernet Franc, and actually make it. I know I can tell you already from, we're going to try the 2015 vintage, but we've got up to, I'm about to bottle the 2020 vintage. So I know the way that we're going. And we go to Bordeaux blend, and then we sort of sway back with more Syrah and slightly different blends. So, but with track record now, track record of blending different things together, and yeah.
The patience to have a wine you've been creating for 6 years and now giving it out. It's one of the remarkable things about wine, and I love that you've given it so much time. I'm also very keen to try it. So let us have
let's hit it.
A first taste.
I'm very happy with it. I think it's exactly what we want. It's that combination of all the elements coming together to make a really complex, beautiful wine, which I think is quite distinctive in terms of its structure and its flavors for what we want. And at Keermont, you know, a real flagship should really show you what the estate is about, you know, and that's what we're aiming for. So
with the added bonus that your first vintage just happens to be from a vintage generally in Stellenbosch that was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, so 2015 was a really lovely vintage. You know, I had an interesting discussion with somebody about it the other day where they asked about the wine and I told them about the weather. You know, and as somebody, my job has always been very involved in the vineyards and in the winemaking side, where if you asked a marketer what the vintage was like, they would tell you about what the wines were like. You know, with me, when I think about a vintage, I think about, you know, a gale force wind, which really, you know, damaged our vineyards that year, or rain before harvest, or, you know, but 15, yes, textbook vintage. We started picking very early for our neighborhood. It was one of the earliest vintages that we ever started picking, very condensed, all the fruit sort of ripened at a short period. And with something like that, I don't think we ever really anticipated it to be like that really good vintage. But when the wine started coming out, people were like, sheepers, what's going on here? You know, so it really did turn out to be, I think this wine is for one of our wines is very clinical. It's very, very tidy. And I think it's going to mature beautifully I would give this wine another, you know, it's drinking nicely now, but 5, 10, 15 years from here.
So there we go, looking out for it. The Amphitheatre, the brand new flagship from the team at Keermont, as you've heard. It's got a wonderful story, some fairly humble beginnings, but now a smash hit of a 2015, brand new and released. Get hold of it, maybe try and hang on to it just a little longer and get the best out of it. But know that yet again, Stellenbosch has delivered something special, and unsurprisingly, it's from Keermont. So that's Alex and his amphitheatre out of Keermont. Not a huge amount made, get some while you still can. Now, if you drop in here on Bartony, you've got a whole range of options to look out for. Ronald Reid, the winemaker, has become celebrated from particular Cabernet Sauvignon Chardonnay, and there is a huge amount of it here. You'll also see some bubbles from Plaisir de Mal, the sister estate just down the road, with Rose Jordan keeping a firm hand on the rebirth of a great South African estate. So this is a really cool place to hang out. It's right in the centre of Stellenbosch. You can hear behind me, it's pretty active. There's a real buzz to it. There's also a real buzz whenever you go to Sun City. I was there a little while ago. I dropped in on one of the restaurants at the Palace of the Sun City and met up with somebody who's got a great love of food and wine and a real passion for what he does. Alex Starey, welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine.
Thank you very much, you're welcome.
I can hardly believe you've been here for 21 years because you don't look much older than 21. Give me an idea of wine as a whole here at Sun City. It's a vast, vast complex. There are different restaurants, different hotels. Give me an idea of the scale of wine, the type of wine that we find across Sun City.
I'll start by saying, before I can come to your question, how do you introduce a person to drink wine? Somebody who trained me 5 years ago in wine training until I get level 3 in wine. He said, if you teach somebody to drink wine, start that person with a very, very soft and light, fruity wine. Because if I can give you a heavy wine, you'll find it bitter. Then we'll say, no. But to bring you into the family, I should take you like a toddler. You go up. Soft wine, easy to drink, fruity. The more you get used to wine, then I'll go with you. I can start with maybe a very dry wine. It should be something fruity. When it goes to red, I can't give you a very heavy wine. I should give you something fruity. It will be easy to drink.
I think that's an excellent summary of introducing to wine. I love the toddler part as well, guiding people through. Not giving your toddler wine, mind, but it's I asked you for 3 wines. Rocco's prepared some food. We've got the first of these wines here. I know partly you've chosen it because it's Chardonnay and you enjoy Chardonnay. Okay. Is there anything else to this particular selection?
First, let's start my Chardonnay Placid May. The origin of the wine is from the palm. Secondly, it goes with aging. It's between 2 and 5 years. That's the growing potential or the maturing potential of that wine. It must not exceed 5 years. It's not going to be that nice. I like it between 2 and 5.
Well, you've got the timing just right because this is a 2017. Of course, it is no longer Plaisir de Merle. It is simply Plaisir after Michael and Rose Jordan took over, and you will have seen the official launch of the new brand on Dan Really Likes Wine. And what I also like is that it's cool, and gee, we need it cool at Sun City, but it's not too cold. Something we're going to get the best out of it. If I can ask you, Bartony, I'll hand it over to you. You're the expert. If you'll pour me some of this Chardonnay and introduce me to the wine, if you will. All right, the Chardonnay Plaisir de Merle, now Plaisir, sitting on that corner where Paul hits Franschhoek. Hey, hang a right afterwards, and you're heading up into the Bunhook Valley, where there's some lovely Chardonnay being made at places like Bartony, which just happens to be the Jordans as well. I've got high expectations here, Bartony. This is the first wine you've chosen.
I promise you won't get disappointed.
It's the creaminess, it's a little bit of sweetness of the fruit, it's the fact that you know there's a little bit of wood, but it hasn't swept away the flavour, it hasn't dominated. And I think my only question from here, Bartony, would be, it's really, really good. It's just missing some food. A chef.
Good.
This looks fabulous. I can work out this salmon. Tell me how you've done it, and more importantly, why you've done it like this, given what we're drinking.
What we've done is we took a little bit of chimichurri sauce. We coat whole fish with the chimichurri, the salmon. We sealed it off on the griller, and then we just put it in the oven for about 7 minutes, just to get a little medium rare crisp on top of the fish, and then a nice corn and tomato sauce on top. Garnish nicely with a burnt lemon. Burnt lemon gives flavour when you burn it on the griller, so it's also easy to pour out the juice from the actual skin from the lemon, and so it's in a nice big block. Simple, simplicity, but passion for sure.
Looks brilliant. It sounds brilliant. I'm going to give it a test. Thanks, Chef.
Thank you very much.
Salmon's always a fascinating dish because It's very easy to do in a fairly simple one-dimensional way, and it can be lovely. Anybody can make salmon at home. You can make it taste pretty good. When you experiment with it, you have the potential to get it a little wrong, or in this case, you've got the potential to turn it into something really special. And that salsa in particular, just that little bit of acid coming through it, doesn't only play off the richness of the food, it's also speaking delightfully to that Chardonnay. Or at least I think that's the case. I'm probably going to have to finish this and maybe have one more, just to be sure. Isabella's saying, great choice on the Chardonnay, great choice on the food, lovely combination. How important is it for you as the heartbeat of this restaurant to be able to guide people, not insist, but guide people on, okay, here's a wine list, maybe they're foreigners, maybe they don't know the wine so well, this is what you want to eat, here's your suggestion. How much is that part of what you like to do in this role?
In the palace, we are lucky to have a lot of foreign guests. So when you come to South Africa, you come to the palace. First, you have to taste the food that is African. Secondly, you have to drink the wine that is African. I won't be shy in most time to recommend our own South African wines. So as I can give the foreigners, our foreign guests, a lively experience that they will take home. I was in South Africa, they give me this kind of fish, they give me this kind of meat, they give me this kind of wine. So I think it is a life experience.
You're basically playing tour guide with food and wine, aren't you? All right, well, I need you to continue that job. And our second wine, I've got a suspicion as to certainly what variety it might be, Bella saying, because I asked you a particular question earlier about red wine, and you seem to have a certain fondness for Merlot. Is it a Merlot that we're drinking next?
That will be the Merlot.
You've gone with the De Grendel, and I'm glad you have, because Durbanville often gets written off a little as just being a home of Sauvignon Blanc, and they do so much more in the area. But also with De Grendel itself, they do have a habit of making some rather nice Merlot. Charles Hopkins is a very gifted winemaker indeed. Let's see how this is drinking. Some 2018 Merlot. And you can see why, not just here at the Palace here at Sun City, but really right across South Africa, Merlot is such a popular grape. It's smooth, it's accessible, it's a friendly red wine. Doesn't ask too many questions, but gives you lots of nice answers, which I think is a great combination. From your suggestion, we've got the one, and on its own, I can happily drink Merlot all evening. But I know there's some food coming because Rocco's been threatening to feed me all night. What have you and the chef come up with as the partner for this, Balassing?
My Merlot will be coming with lamb, accompanied with a nice sauce of red wine juice.
Right. All right, chef. You've got some Merlot to work with. I think Merlot offers you quite a broad canvas, given that it's a nice, easy, accessible red. What have you gone with?
Well, what we did here with the Merlot, we did grilled lamb chops from Strim. Bit of fat on the side, we trim it down to 10% as we get it in. Get full fat, but we trim it down because a little bit of fat just gives a little bit of flavour, and you know the marbling around in the lamb chops as well. Sounds strange to hear marbling on lamb, but that's what we're going for. Because marbling is ultimately the fat between the layers of muscle. So nice grilled veggies. Also keep it very simple though. That's very one of the signature dishes. People love it. And yeah, and served with the red wines you also make full Merlot. So yeah, and that's really one of the touch basing. You know, make sure both are compatible, and you know, one doesn't overpower the other one, and that's how we go about it. Yeah.
All right, you set a high standard with the salmon. Let's see how the lamb goes.
Enjoy.
Merlot is a smooth wine, and Charles Hopkins De Grendel Merlot out of Durbanville is certainly very smooth, but it's not without tannin. There's still a bit of grip in there, there's still a bit of bite, and what that does is plays off the fat and that marbling really nicely. And much as you saw with the salmon and the Chardonnay, where they're coming against each other and the one's playing off the other so beautifully, and you're getting that sense of balance, that's what we get here as well. So it's not just Balassing sticking a pin into his wine list thinking, oh, this looks nice, and then Rocco doing the same. They've clearly thought this out, and they've worked on combinations. They're not extravagant, they aren't wild, but there's been some thought gone into them, and they're working out really nicely. And I'm the one who gets to have fun enjoying it. So Balassing, you've given us your favourite white wine, the Chardonnay. You've given us your favourite red wine, the Merlot. You've got one more wine to give me, and I said, give me anything you want from your wine list. I left it completely open. What have you decided on for wine number 3?
For wine number 3, I've went straight to Stellenbosch to get a Pinotage.
Pinotage is a wine that's, I think it's in an interesting space in South Africa. We're seeing a lot of Pinotage that's playing more off its old roots, its Hermitage or Cinsault, its Pinot Noir, and it's we're seeing styles that are a bit lighter and a little bit fruitier. This is sort of somewhere in the middle, I think. What about this particular wine do you really like?
What I like about the Pinotage, as we have just mentioned, the lightness of it, the fruitiness of it is easy and it accommodates anybody who drinks wine.
What goes with a nice glass of Pinotage?
The final dish that goes with our Pinotage will be a nice piece of a ribeye.
Ooh.
Masterclass, my own. If I have to say myself. Ribeye, spoke about marbling. That's where marbling comes very much in effect. I choose ribeye for my menu purely because of the marble of the ribeye. It speaks by itself. You've got 2 centimeter fat around the meat, the marbling in the middle, the ribeye, the eye in the middle. It makes it a ribeye. It's really exceptional piece of meat for grilling. And then the basting sauce is also very essential because we use a red wine Merlot as well for the basting itself. And then we did a rich peppercorn sauce. We spread off a little bit of peppers, corn, and also with a little bit of whiskey in just to burn off the alcohol. And then just to balance out the flavors between the wine and all other flavors in the plate. So one of our top dishes at the moment. And ribeye speaks for itself.
All right, Chef Rocco, thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy.
So I have to tell you something here, Bella Singh. I love a piece of steak, and the cut that I will go for time and again is a ribeye. So you either did your research or you and I share similarly good taste.
Okay.
Either way, this looks cracking. So the best wines always give you those layers, and the first mouthful gives way to a second where you discover something new and something different, and the palate lights up in different parts. And this is what, from Chef Rocco's suggestion, we're going to find here, the ribeye in itself with that lovely marbling and that richness and that fat. And then there's the basting, and then he's gone for the peppercorn sauce. There are lots of different layers, lots of different flavors. We get that with the wine as well. So yet again, it's a battle royale of a culinary sort. It's a lovely piece of steak, and although there is the basting, although there is the sauce, it's still not overcomplicated. It's a lovely, simple collection of flavours, and it's washed down extremely well by that particular glass of Pinotage. Thank you for some lovely food. Thank you for some lovely wine, and most importantly, thank you for some great conversation and some great company.
Thank you very much.
So there you go, the palace at the Lost City up at Sun City. It's an iconic South African destination, and if you weren't sure about the food and wine, well, I think that should have convinced you. Also, real capital of food and wine, Stellenbosch, rebranding itself very much as the wine bar capital of pretty much the planet. You can't walk through the town without hitting a wine bar every 10 feet. And like Bartony here, they've all got a real character to them and a real excitement. Important for us to be at Bartony because, as I mentioned earlier, a case of this Hourglass Chardonnay plus a weekend at Bartony could be yours simply by jumping on a social media, telling us why you think you should be at Bartony. Have Michael Jordan tuck you in at night with a cup of hot chocolate and drink some great Chardonnay, and just do that on social media. The prize could be yours. So thanks to Alex from Keermont, thanks to the team at Sun City, thanks to Bartony, a must-see destination next time you're in Stellenbosch. We'll see you back on Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay next week.